If you ask an average person of what purgatory probably feels like, they probably compare it to being in a doctor's waiting room or sitting on an airplane before its departure. If you ask Carl Casagrande, well, first he'll tell you what the word purgatory means. And then, after you explain the concept to him, he'll likely compare it to being stuck about of his insomnia on a sleepover. It was 1 a.m. at the Chain's apartment, where Carl was sleeping over. Stanley, Becca, Sid, and his good friend Aide were all fast asleep. He was wide awake. Maybe he had gotten too much screen time before going to bed. Or maybe the pint of cola he drank was the true culprit. Whatever the case, all he could do was to wander early, quietly out of the halls of the apartment he wasn't familiar with. He walked from room to room, taking extra care to minimize the sound of his footsteps, as so to not wake anyone up. He spent an inordinate amount of time staring at a family picture of the Chains standing right outside their stoop, taken days before they moved in. In an attempt to pass the time, he scanned the photo of every conceivable detail he could have missed. The mustard stain on Stanley's pants, the traces of shredded animal fur on Becca's shirt, and what appeared to be a gap in Adeli's smile. After taking in all that, he glanced at his watch and was gobsmacked to see it was only 1:05. That's impossible. I feel like I've been standing here for hours. He ambled towards the kitchen and briefly entertained the thought of raiding the fridge for a glass of milk. But he didn't know which foods were up for grabs and which were off limits. He supposed that he could take a book off of one of their shelves in the living room and read for a while. What if those were off limits too? He sorely wished he had asked them more about their house rules when he had the chance. All he could do was shamble back into Adelaide's room, where his sleeping bag was set up on the floor, and try to go back to sleep. But as he approached their bedroom door, he heard a faint noise coming from inside. Curious, he tried pressing his ear against the door, but he was still too faint to make it out. As he creaked open the door and tiptoed inside, the sound gradually became clearer, as he could tell that it was coming from Adelaide's bed. He also saw that Adelaide's sized mound under the covers was shifting and undulating. Either she was having a bit of trouble getting back to sleep herself, or was there a mumbling monster hiding under the covers? Yeah, probably the first one. He supposed it wouldn't hurt to check. He climbed onto her bed, grasped the edge of the comforter, and carefully drew it away from the mattress. Sure enough, there was no monster to be seen, and it was clear that the sounds were coming from Adelaide. She was tossing and turning about. Her eyes were clamped shut, and now that Carl could actually make out what she was mumbling, it wasn't so hard to piece together of what was happening to her. No more. Please. We're sorry. Just stop it. No, not Sid. Stay away from her. Somebody help us. Carl's heart ached. Adeline knew he was confident, strong, fearless. Seeing her in such frightened state would filter in the wrong phenomenal level. He shuddered to image of what he could possibly frighten her. More importantly, she was his best friend, and he couldn't, in a good coincidence, going back to bed while his friend was suffering. It was hard for him to sleep. Before, it would be downright impossible to acknowledge the fact that Adelaide at the mercy of a bad dream. He had to wake her up. She warned him before going to bedtime that he would act to get a butt kicking if he woke her up. But he would gladly take the butt kicking if it meant saving her from the nightmare. He grabbed her by the shoulder and gave her a good strong shake. Adelaide, wake up! You're dreaming! Adelaide's eyes popped open. For a while she just stared at the ceiling in a trance-like state, although her brain had to recalibrate itself. Her breathing was labored, and he could hear her heart pounding against her ribcage. As time went on, the paralyzing shock seeped out of Adelaide's system. Unfortunately, said shock was the only thing keeping her from confronting the horror of what she just witnessed. She propped herself up against the headboard of her bed and began to speak. "Oh, Carl, it was horrible," she whispered, in a voice that sounded to be at the verge of tears. "We were celebrating Nico's birthday. You know Nico, right? He's one of our monkeys. We had a big, delicious cake for him, and balloons and streamers, too. Everyone was happy, but..." The wrinkles in his forehead became deeper as more pronounced. The balloons started popping, and the sound hurt Nico's ears. He got more and more upset every time it happened. and then a balloon popped in his face, and she looked into Carl's eyes, her eyes exuded a palpable feeling of fear that he had never seen her express before. He screeched, he jumped on my dad, and started banging his fist against his face. Mom and Sid tried to pull him off, and he attacked them too, punching them and biting him when screaming in their ears. I begged for him to stop, but he wouldn't listen. The tears she had been holding back the whole time began to well up in her eyes. But the worst part was the end. He stopped screeching and attacking and just stumbled towards me. His eyes were big and yellow. There was blood all over his cheeks, and he was baring his teeth at me. It was the scariest face I've ever seen. That was when you woke me up. The world around him seemed to grind to a halt as he stared into her misery, quivering eyes. Carl was a boy who married strengths and talents, chess, karate, and hustling, just to name a few. But making the others feel better was not one of them. He had tried to imagine what Frida would do if she were comforting him. She tried to mimic the actions that unfolded in his mind. It's okay, Adelaide, he whispered, as he reached out to caress Adelaide's cheek with his hand. It was just a dumb nightmare. Go back to sleep. I can't. I can't? He stifled to a gasp. The sentence "I can't" was just the last thing he expected to overhear from her. This was Adelaide. She would do anything to set her mind, and she knew how to do it. I'm so scared to close my eyes, she whispered. I don't want to see that face again. She gave off a shudder that seemed to shake a few loose tears from her eyes, which were now running down her face. Carl felt a lump forming in his throat. The sight of Adelaide in such a state was tearing his heart asunder. God, what was he to do? He wished he could just scrub away Adelaide's memory of the nightmare, or of that ghastly face. If he were in her shoes, he would just try to imagine El Falcon watching over him as he slept, but Adelaide wasn't him. But as luck would have it, that idle thought of it triggered his minor empathy. Maybe she would feel more comfortable if she knew there was someone looking out for her while she slept. Not El Falcon, but someone she knew and trusted and admired. Someone like him. He patted the center of the mattress and told her to lie back down. You don't have to close your eyes yet, he reassured her. Just lie down. Okay. She nodded and crawled over to the spot that he patted out for her and laid down on her side. Her breath was still shaky and erratic. Once she took position, she crawled back behind her, wrapping his arms around her middle and pulled her in tight. Gosh, she's tiny, he thought, and as he engulfed her, his warm embrace just let her head rest against his chest. Carl was just reminded of how small Adelaide was compared to him. He towered over her despite being around the same age. Unfortunately, that wasn't the only thing crossing his mind. His body was gripped with tension, as he felt that he was violating some unspoken taboo. Was there no way that he was doing this if he had better ideas in mind? He already felt a bit uneasy, agreeing to sleep over at a girl's house, but getting into the same bed as her, and snuggling with her, there had to be a line somewhere, right? At least it seemed to be working, though. Her breaths gradually became longer and smoother the more he held her. She let out a low, concentrated sound as she nestled her head against his sternum. Shh, he whispered. Go to sleep. Go to sleep. Carl was yet varying times Adelaide's companion, her competitor and sparring partner. He pretended to sidekick and she and her pretended house husband. This was the first time he ever felt like her protector. He was there to keep her all the bad dreams at bay and make sure that she got a good night's sleep. And that feeling, that warm fuzzy feeling, overwhelmed any sense of doubt or self-conscious that he ever felt before. If there was anyone who would just object to him comforting his best friend in the whole world, they would just pound or sand for all he cared. He was going to hold on to her until he was for sure that she was fast asleep. Or at least that was the plan going in. Ultimately, he got so comfortable that he fell asleep beside her before he could make it back to his sleeping bag. The two of them slept soundly, and Adelaide didn't see a ghastly face again for the rest of the night. And that, my pretties, was Sleep Aide, a Casagrandes fanfiction written by MrTyeDye. Yeah, it's actually, I kind of don't remember how long it's been since I've, pretty much, read any of MrTyeDye's stories, so I'm gonna say right now, this one was actually a really sweet story. I personally really liked it. It was a really good story. I personally think that, it was a really good detail and really good concept. I personally really found that this was really enjoyable, for at least to me, that is. I personally really thought that it was it's a really cute story. I mean, it's got a good concept for it, which, I mean, it's about Adelaide having a nightmare. Now, I'm not really too big on Casagrandes. I don't really know what it is. I'm just not really a fan of the Casagrandes, if that makes sense. Like, I mean, I don't really know what it is, but, I just wasn't really a fan of the Casagrandes. So there's definitely that. But I could definitely say that it was definitely a really good, story. I personally liked the concept of it. I thought it was really well made. I have to say the grammar was really good. The sentence structuring was great. The storyline was flat out amazing. It was just a really great concept for a story. I will leave a link in description for you guys if you guys want to go check this one out. Now, as a Loud House fan, I have nothing against the show Casagrandes, but I'm not really too crazy on it. But I definitely have to say this fanfiction was actually really cute. I mean, it's a really good story. I personally really liked it a lot. I thought there was like a really great concept going forward with this story, and it just obviously hits me really differently. I mean, if you guys know Carl, he's, the kind of the troublemaker at the Casagrandes, but in this one, he's actually quite sweet, which I really enjoyed. The concept of him being sweet. So this is kind of one side that you don't really see often when it came to the Casagrandes. But I personally really do appreciate, that this is actually quite believable. Now, I will say this is actually something that you might see in Loud House or Casagrandes. I could actually picture this being a real episode. Like, no joke. I could actually picture this being a real episode of the Casagrandes. I mean, yeah, I personally really have to say that this was actually a good story. The grammar was good. Sentence structuring was good. The storyline of it was flat out amazing. I just love everything about this. This was just flat out awesome. I personally really do enjoy this a lot. Now, like I said, I'll leave a link in the description so you guys can go check out this story if you haven't. It's on fanfiction.net, but I will leave a link to it, so if you guys want to go, read it for yourself, you're more than welcome to. And also give a shout out to MrTyeDye for making this story. He did a really awesome job. I can definitely say he did a really great job with this story. Now, I'll try and see if I can narrate more of MrTyeDye's stories in the future, but who knows when that will be. That will probably depend on when I have the opportunity and the chance to take a look at his stories. I'll definitely do that. But yeah, I haven't did a Casagrandes fanfiction or story in like a really long time. I think it might have been maybe 3 or 4 years ago when I touched on one, but I haven't touched on one since. So yeah, I mean, I'm more of a Loud House person in my opinion, but Casagrandes is alright. I mean, it's pretty much the same universe as Loud House, but it's more focused on the Casagrandes, if that makes total sense. Okay, I guess that's pretty much all I have to really say, but if I'm missing something, please let me know in the comments below. Now, like I'm always going to say, and like I always continue to say, this is just simply my own personal opinion, and if you happen to disagree with me, that's perfectly fine too. We're all entitled to our own opinions in regards to these stories. This is just simply my own personal thoughts. I give this story a 10 out of 10. It's a really sweet story. I personally love it. It was really good. I could see this being a real Casagrande episode, and I could definitely see this is out of character for Carl to do that, but, I like that he was carrying in this story. Like, I like that. That was actually pretty much a game changer for him, but it was still pretty nice. I personally really enjoyed it. Anyways, with that being said and that being the case, what did you guys personally think of this story? Did you enjoy it? Did you not? Also, what would you have done personally to help make this story a lot better? Feel free to let me know what your thoughts are down in the comment section down below. I'm the Lion Queen. Thank you or Shadow the Lion Queen, whatever you prefer to call me. Thank you so much for watching today's video, and if you enjoy this channel, leave a like, comment, and subscribe if you're new. Ring the bell for notifications to when I upload, so that way you guys will not miss an upload. As always, if you're interested in becoming a channel member, my channel member is open, so you guys can go be a member if you'd like to. It's not required. It's an option if you want to. And as always, if you guys want to go follow me on Blue Sky, follow me on Twitter, and follow me on DeviantArt, my links to those will be in the About page section, so you guys can go follow me on there. Also, don't forget to subscribe to my backup channel known as MrTyeDye, as a link to that will also be in the About page section, so you guys can go follow me on there. And yeah, as always, thank you so much for watching, and as always, roll the outro, because I'm out. What's up, my pretties? It's the Lion Queen here. I want to appreciate you all for tuning into this video, and I do appreciate you guys supporting my video by giving this video likes and stuff. If you really enjoyed this video, be sure to leave a like, comment and subscribe if you're new, ring the bell for notifications to when I upload, so that way you guys will get updated for whenever I upload. If you want to follow me on Twitter or DeviantArt, feel free to leave a follow on those if you are interested in following me on those socials. If you want to support my backup channel, known as MrTyeDye, feel free to subscribe to it, as a link to that will also be in the About page section. And with that being said, and that being the case, thank you so much for watching, my pretties, and as always, please stay pretty.